community, to another segment of Educational Thursdays. Boy, do we have a treat for you. You figured it out. The bishop is not here, but you have myself, Khalees Hollins, host for the night, and youth team college student Sanaya. Sanaya, say something to the community.
Hi, community. I'm so excited to make my first appearance on the show for this topic.
All right now. So we appreciate you for tuning in with us and supporting our organization. If you have not already liked, subscribed, followed us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, check us out on both sides of the conversation.org. Maybe you would like to share your side of the conversation. Join us, recommend a topic, become involved with the community. We have Sunday conversations where you can just go back and forth popcorn style and throw things in the air and elaborate on these topics that we have. And trust me, they are good topics. Hidden Gems Tuesday, where a business or a community leader or someone that's doing something for the community gives what they're doing. We also have, you guessed it, Educational Thursdays. This is where our experts present learning opportunities for the community. And we do thank you for joining us today. So I want to share with you a little bit what's going on in the community. I don't want to share just yet what our Educational Thursday is about. I want to keep it for a moment. So police, a boy shoots two administrators at Denver High School. So a 17-year-old, I know you've all seen it in the news, a 17-year-old student shot and wounded two administrators at a Denver high school on Wednesday. So as they searched him for weapons, a daily requirement because of the boy's behavior issues, authorities said. So it sounds like to me, they knew that something was going on. So why are they searching him directly for weapons? The student fled his vehicle, was later found in a remote mountain area 50 miles southwest of Denver, but he remained at large. So there was a shelter in place. The shooting occurred at a school shaken by frequent lockdowns, violence, including the killing of classmates, and promoted East High School students to march on the Colorado Capitol earlier this month. So this sounds like there's a trend. One of the wounded administrators was released from the hospital Wednesday afternoon, and the second remained in serious condition. This is what Heather Burke said, a spokesperson for the Denver Health Hospital. In response to the shooting, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre repeated President Joe Biden's call for stricter gun laws, including bans on assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines, and for Congress to do something on gun control. Well, Colorado is one of the states where you can be armed. So there's more to come on that. This is unfortunate. Like I've said in the past few weeks, pray over your children. You don't know what you're sending them out there into, because God has the last say-so over your child's life. Nonetheless, we got kids coming on with these guns and stuff. You just don't know what's going to happen. So it's always good to pray over your children. Body of a radio host, JB, found in the San Francisco Bay Pier 39. The body of radio host Jeffrey J.B. Vandergrift was found in San Francisco Bay by Pier 39 on Wednesday. Now, if you remember a few weeks ago, we shared where the wife had came on and said that he won't be back. And this is very unfortunate. He was a 55-year-old person. Police found his body just before 5 p.m. on Wednesday, and they said there was no evidence of foul play. A coroner has yet to confirm the Bay Area icon's official cause of death. So, as I stated, on March 1st, Yee said personal information indicating JB will not be coming back had he been found. Vandergrift hosted his radio show on the same day he vanished. He spoke candidly to Wild 94.9 listeners about suffering from Lyme disease. The body and the pain and all the stuff I can handle. What it's doing to my brain, I could never describe to you, JB said. Now, I remember riding to the Bay Area and in the Bay Area, listening to 94.9 because it used to go crazy. But this is so awful because you just never know what a person is going through. And for this to happen and the wife to know what was going on, it has to be heart-wrenching. The latest atmospheric river claims 5 killed in the Bay Area. A powerful storm that whipped through San Francisco on Tuesday claimed the lives of 2 people in San Francisco, the mayor's office announced Wednesday. The 2 people, 36-year-old Ryan Taylor of Nevada and a 55-year-old Kayong Han of San Francisco, were both killed by falling trees in separate incidents. Tragically, 2 people lost their lives, which is a grave reminder of how serious and dangerous this storm became. Mayor London Breeze said in a statement, "The repeated storms have been challenging, but our public workers have been out keeping residents safe, limiting damage as much as possible, and quickly cleaning up the city. One of the trees came down on Post Street in the Tenderloin. The other deadly incident happened on Lincoln Way near Golden Gate Park. Elsewhere in the Bay Area, one person in Walnut Creek was killed Tuesday when a tree fell on their car. One person was also killed near Portola Way in Portola Valley is also dead after a large eucalyptus tree fell on top of their car. The tree came crashing down on top of a plumbing van as the van was heading eastbound on Alpine Road west of I-280. A 5th person was killed in near Lake Merritt when a large tree fell on a tent, Oakland officials told KRON 4. Oakland police responded to the area around 5:45 p.m. It's awful with all this atmospheric rivers and this just unusual California weather going on. We have to make sure we're calling on our family, our loved ones, and making sure that they're safe. And unfortunately, when we're out and driving around, we don't know when these trees will come down. So it's best to stay indoors and safe when we know that these storms are bad. It's just very unfortunate for the families of those 5 lost in the Bay Area. Barricaded suspect armed with machete dies after police shoot in San Jose. San Jose police late Wednesday night shot and killed a man armed with a machete who had barricaded himself with hostages, the police department said. 3 hostages, including 2 children, were safely removed from a home in the 900 block of Boynton Avenue after the shooting, police said. No officers were injured. The suspect was pronounced dead at a local hospital, San Jose Police Department confirmed. Officers and special operations personnel engaged with the suspect after receiving a call at 8:30 p.m. Details about the suspect, the hostages, and the circumstances of the standoff were not immediately provided. The shooting and standoff are under investigation. You know, this is unfortunate. There's so much going around. We got school shootings, we got officer-involved shootings. There's always something that's just going on, and it's just awful. It's awful. So do your best, pray, and just ask for God for guidance. You just never know what you may be led into. So outside of that, we have so many community events. There's no reason to be sitting at home. You can get involved in the community. You can go places, take your family places. This stuff doesn't necessarily cost money. These are things that you can do for free. So go ahead, and we're going to give it to our youth member, Sanaya, and she's going to present to you the actual events in the community. Sanaya, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, community. So these are the upcoming events. There's a free electrification clinic. You can learn more about affordable electric homes. It's hosted by the BNSN Resource Center at 94,000 International Boulevard, Unit C in Oakland. It starts from March 23rd and it goes through 5 p.m. through 7 p.m. You can get more information at the link below. There's a 100% affordable housing program through the City and County SF Mayor's Office at 921 Howard Street. The applications are due March 24th, and the lottery will be on April 7th. You can learn more at the link below. Mission Science Workshop is hosting a giant blood vessel exhibit at Charles Drew Elementary School at 501 Pomona Street at March 25th, 10 a.m. through 3 p.m. Thurgood Marshall's Block Party, free activities, a bounce house, and even a BBQ and a resource fair, and even more than that, at March 25th, 11 a.m. through 2 p.m. at 45 Conkling Street. There's a Bayview Science Workshop at Charles Drew, March 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's at Charles Drew Elementary at 50 Pomona Street. And you can learn more at the link below. Princess Project has a volunteer opportunity. 2023 prom dress giveaways, now through May 28th at 455 Margaret Street. You can sign up at Eventbrite. SF Recreations and Park Department is hosting an aquatics lifeguard class Tuesday through Friday, March 28th to the 31st at 8 a.m. through 5 p.m. You can find more information at the Gmail below. And Youth Speaks is hosting a writing and performance workshop. It has a spring series at 265 Charlotte Street. There's a Zoom available now throughout May 31st. Information at the website below. And MOAD members are invited to the Black Venus opening reception, April 4th, 6 p.m. through 7 p.m. at 685 Mission Street at 3rd Street. There's more information on the link below. And there's a first kayaking and family event at Jackrabbit Beach, Candlestick area, April 8th, 10 a.m. through 3 p.m. You can RSVP at the Google Docs link below. And there's a paid youth arts workforce development training program at youth application is due April 24th, and the information is down below. And Mackey's Corner presents Suicide Awareness and Prevention, June 3rd at Gilman Park. Info on how you can help at this Gmail or the phone number down below. There's a 2023 8-week program, Literacy Enrichment, Sports, and Weekly Field Trips, grades 6th through 8th, June 12th through August 4th, 8 a.m. through 5:30 p.m. at 1050 McAllister Street. Information at the website below. Now here are some ongoing events. We want to remove Reverend Amos Brown from the NAACP and Reparations Task Force. Reverend Brown does not represent the change we need. Both sides of the conversation needs your support and signature. You can sign the petition from the link below. And here's a few scholarships and job opportunities for the community. Saving to Build My Dream Art and Video Contest. Win $500 in scholarships. The deadline is March 24th. You can get more info at the Gmail down below. There's a job fair at Treasure Island, the Job Corps Center, March 30th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., 351 Avenue H and SF. More information at the Google Docs below. And Close the Gap Foundation having a summer fellowship scholarship opportunities. The program is June 4th through September 17th. The application is due March 31st. More information at the website below. 826 Valencia is pleased to offer multiple $20,000 internships to outstanding high school seniors in SFUSD. It's due April 7th, 11:59 p.m. And more information at the website below. Hope SF is accepting academic scholarship applications. Students who live in the Alice Griffith, Potrero Terrace Annex, Huntersview, or Sunnydale. The deadline is April 14th. You can apply at the link below. The City and County of SF has an upcoming career event. It's a career resource fair. It starts at April 15th, 10 a.m. through 2 p.m. Civic Center Plaza at 355 McAllister Street, SF. You can register at the link below. And here's the most important one. Well, I shouldn't say most important, but it's a very important one. You can join our youth team. SF Youth Volunteers Needed. There's a paid stipend. You can high school or college honor roll students. You can join us at this email below. We are in search of volunteers. Our work is inspiring and feels good. We make a difference in the community with tangible results to show it. We are a highly driven group of high impact. We get the right things done the right way. Not only will you contribute to the community, but you'll also learn a lot and gain knowledge in your field of interest within the organization. We value your ideas and input. Sign up to be a volunteer today. You can make a difference. Go to all our social media sites for more news on how to give back to your community and support both sides of the conversation.
Wow, Sanaya, thank you so much. As you know, it tends to be a mouthful, right? It always does. And the good thing about it is, come to both sides of the conversation, volunteer. We support our youth, we empower our youth, and we have other positions available as well. So reach out, bothsidesoftheconversation.org. We have something for you to do. Trust me, give back to the community is very important. Now, with all those community events, the news, go ahead and tune in for our upcoming shows. We have education on Sunday, reparations, and the call to action to remove Reverend Amos Brown. This is going to be Sunday's conversation, y'all. Sunday, March 26th. Tune in, 4 p.m. Go on there, follow it, ring the bell. Hidden Gems, Tuesday, March 28th at 7 p.m. It is very important. We have a great organization that you can become part of. Look on our website, Both Sides of the Conversation. You'll see a variety what our mission, our value is, and how we give back to the community. Now, what you all been waiting for. We have a great educational topic. DPA 101, San Francisco Department of Police Accountability. Yes, you heard it. This is extremely important. So we have so much going on in San Francisco that we thought so much of you community to learn more what can happen, what is going on, what type of avenues or channels you have, how your voice can also be heard, because this is both sides of the conversation, but you can have a special conversation when it depends on what you've gone through and your experience. So we're going to present to you Tinnetta Thompson with the Department of Police Accountability, and I would love to introduce her to you as now. Hi, Tinnetta. How are you?
I am so well, Khalees. Thank you for having me this evening. Hi, Sanaya. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here amongst you beautiful queens.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And more so, we are glad to have you on this Educational Thursday. So please, we're going to go ahead and give this platform over to you because we know that you have something to give to the community. So we'll go ahead and remove ourselves.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone out there in the community watching right now live, or will be watching it soon. My name is Tinnetta Thompson. I'm an attorney and the director of recruitment for the Department of Police Accountability, a civilian oversight agency in the city and county of San Francisco. I have been with the agency for about 5 years this year. Yes, and prior to that, I was an assistant district attorney here in San Francisco. And so I'm just so excited to share today. And what it is getting to know what DPA does, because a lot of people don't know what the Department of Police Accountability does. And what we do is we investigate any and all complaints made about any San Francisco police officer on duty. And right now and below, you'll see our website. You can go to it and learn all about what we do there. We also have a mediation unit. We do outreach, as we're doing right now, in the community, because we want people to know who we are and that we are a resource for you. And so right now, I'll just give you a little bit of DPA 101, as well as do a little bit of Know Your Rights, because our youth in San Francisco engage with the police the most on a daily basis. So it's important for our kids, for you youth out there, to know what your rights are. And if we could pull up the presentation. And so here we have the Department of Police Accountability. Next. And this is our executive director and our mission statement. And again, fairly and impartially investigate complaints against the San Francisco Police Department. We also make policy recommendations regarding police practice, investigate all officer-involved shootings, and conduct periodic audits of the San Francisco Police Department. So again, it is our mission, and this is our executive director, Paul David Henderson, who you guys might be familiar with. It is, again, we investigate all complaints made, and we have to investigate them because everyone needs to be accountable, whether you're in the criminal justice system or our police officers. No one is above the law, especially in the city and county of San Francisco. Next. And again, who we are. We're a staff of, right now, we're actually over 60 employees. We have our various divisions, our investigations division, in which we would take the complaints and investigate, audit division, in which we would audit police practices by the San Francisco Police Department, mediations, in which the community and the officer that the complaint was made about can actually come in a room and dialogue, and again, bridge that gap, because we know it has been fractured, and looking into that. Our operations, of course, our executive staff. We have a robust legal team, our clerical team, and again, the openness of records. So we've created our SB 14-1, State Bill 1421, where we release officer records if they fall within a certain category. Again, we offer interpretation and translation services for 9 languages and more if we don't have it. And our governing body, and how I like to explain this, is like, since we prosecute police, we're like on the prosecutor side, we report to the police commission, who are our body of judges. So if we find that there's a misconduct, then we will go to the police commission if the punishment is over 10 days, but I'll get into that of suspension. So we'll report to the police commission and have a trial. Next. And here is DPA at a glance. We receive on annual about 775 new complaints. This is how many. You remember I was just talking about State Bill 1421. We've released over 35, almost 36,000 pages of documents related to police misconduct here in San Francisco. We have 11% sustained rate, meaning that all the complaints we get in, we find misconduct in about 11%, which are sustained. And we made 146 policy recommendations to the San Francisco Police Department and at the recommendation of the Police Commission too as well. Next, who can file a complaint? Anyone. And when I say anyone, I mean anyone. You don't even have to see the misconduct to report it. If you've seen it on social media, if you see it on YouTube, if you see it on any type of platform, blog, the news, whatever you see it, you heard about it, somebody told you, you can make that complaint. Doesn't matter your age, where you're at. You can be across the country. Maybe you're visiting. You can report it when you get back to your home. Just remember that the less information you have, the more difficult it would be for us to actually investigate it. And again, it says you do not have to be a witness to make a complaint. We have full instructions on our website on how to do it. When you go to the police station, if you want to make a complaint, they have to give you a form to give to us to make your complaint. So we have plenty of ways that you can make a complaint. And again, anyone, you can make it on behalf of a child. Again, it doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter if you speak English. You don't have to be a citizen of the U.S. You don't have to live in San Francisco. If you find that there's misconduct or you've heard of misconduct against an on-duty San Francisco police officer, please make that complaint to us. Next. And again, how to file a complaint. We actually have a complaint portal now, which is absolutely easy and streamlined. And there is our website. There's our phone number, mail or in person. Or you can, again, like I said, go to any one of the district stations and the 10 district stations, and they will give you a form to submit to us. Next. And here's how the complaint process works. So a complaint is filed, however, the ways that I just explained. And again, remember I talked about mediation. So you and the officer with a certified mediator can go and talk about what happened in that incident. And it's a great way for the officer to know what the community is feeling, how that person felt during the interaction. And it's a great way for the person who made the complainant, to actually get to hear maybe that officer's viewpoint on maybe the person felt like, tone is everything. So maybe there was a complaint where the officer was rude or the officer was very, the tone was off. You can make a complaint, but maybe that doesn't rise to the level that it would be, sustained, or we would say like, that is misconduct, but maybe it's something that, you need to bring the officer in, and you guys both have to agree, of course, to be in mediation, but you can tell the officer how that made you feel. Or the officer can say, I didn't mean to talk to you that way. It was just that we were doing a job and I had to be firm. It's just a great way for two people or two persons to get in a room and discuss and dialogue what happened. And it builds for better community policing, community engagement, and it actually bridges the community together. Now, if mediation is not an option, because sometimes allegations of misconduct are not eligible for mediation, we have to investigate it. And with that, if we found that there's no misconduct, the case is closed. If we find that there is misconduct and we recommend discipline, because remember, we're recommending to discipline, if it's under 10 days suspension, maybe it's a written reprimand, or maybe the officer didn't turn on their body-worn camera, and we recommend that to the chief, and the chief is going to decide the discipline. If it's over 10 days recommended discipline of suspension, then we're going to go to the police commission. And so those are our two avenues. Remember, the police commission are our body of judges that we both report to. The San Francisco Police Department and the Department of Police Accountability both report to the police commission. Next. And here are our three main duties. Again, we investigate, We audit the police practices. If we notice trends, maybe we're seeing something with searches, or maybe a certain demographic is being stopped in a certain neighborhood as opposed to another neighborhood where it's less stops. We also make policy recommendations. We'll look at the rules that the police have to follow and say maybe it's not working, or maybe we need to modify what this rule is, or say you guys need to add a rule so that these officers can follow it, because we're noticing a trend in the officers. We're getting complaints of this misconduct, but maybe the officers or the department hasn't been trained. We're going to make those policy recommendations so that there is no more misconduct. Again, we're all about accountability and transparency at the Department of Police Accountability. Next. And now what I like to do is I like to talk about know your rights and your interactions with the police. Now, this is great for my middle school students, my high school students, when you're either with your graduating, and you're going off to college, but you're interacting with the police. And what I do is I go into the classrooms here in San Francisco or wherever it may call. And what I like to do is, I ask my students, I'm asking you all out there, what are your interactions with the police, good or bad? And you'll be surprised, at the number of interactions, because these kids have all had interactions with the police. I kind of get mixed reviews on what it is, but what I want to do is let these students know, let the youth know how to interact with the police. And for them, again, knowing your rights. Knowing your rights is so important. It's not only for your protection, but for everyone's protection. And when you have that knowledge, that is even 10 times better. And that way, you know what is supposed to happen when you interact with the police. Next. Now, first, we have a consensual contact. So what happens is the police have the right to approach anyone at any time. So an officer can go up to you and say, hey, can I talk to you? And then what I tell the students, or I tell the youth, I say, ask the officer, am I free to go? Because you don't have to talk to them unless they have some sort of way to hold you there. But right now, it's just a consensual contact. And then if the officer says yes, you can walk away. Now, don't run. You can walk away. If no, then your encounter with the police is now a detention. That means you are not free to leave. And even if you're not in handcuffs, that means you're just not free to leave. And that officer is now detaining you. We've heard that word, plenty of times. That's what that means. That officer is telling you that you're now detained and you cannot go, regardless if you're in handcuffs or not. He doesn't have to say you're under arrest. He or she is just trying to investigate. Next. And if you are detained, meaning the officer said you're not free to go, that officer may only hold you long enough to determine if you are involved in criminal activity or a traffic infraction. So let's say, they heard about there was maybe a robbery at a Walgreens around the corner from you where you were walking down the street. Maybe it's late afternoon, and they can only hold you long enough to determine if you were in there. So let's say they had a call and they said, okay, it was a white person wearing blue jeans and a black hoodie, right? And white tennis shoes. So the officer sees someone walking down the street, but they see someone wearing the same clothing description, but it's somebody black, right? And it's I said that the person that they said was a white male. This time they said it was but you're a black female and you're walking down the street with that same clothing description. Now, what they can do, they can say, hey, stop right here. And they can say like, okay, look, you don't fit the description. You might fit the clothing, but you don't fit the racial or gender description. Then they have to let you go. And at that point, if you don't match the description, they have to release you. They can't say, well, we want to call the clerk down that said they were robbed by because you have the same clothing on. I know it's you. I know it's you. No, they can't keep you there. You don't match the description. They're only holding you long enough and you don't match the description. But maybe they're like, okay, well, let's just, and sometimes they'll be like, but you match the description. We didn't get a race. So let's say I took out the race and gender out. Because you match the clothing description, maybe they bring the store clerk to where you are. And as soon as the store clerk says, that's not you, then you have to be released. Otherwise, if that person identifies you as being the one that robbed the store, then you have to stay and you may probably be arrested. But again, they can only hold you long enough to confirm if you were involved in any criminal activity, and hold you long enough. And what they say by traffic infractions, let's say an officer pulls you over, they can only hold you long enough to write that ticket for you. They can't hold you any longer. Okay. Next. Now, a pat search. Now, if an officer believes, we're going to go back to that Walgreens one, right? That you are armed and dangerous. Let's say they heard that 911 call that that person, they robbed the store with a gun. They may search you by feeling the outer layers of your clothing. Okay. So that doesn't mean they can go in your pockets. Okay. But they can only go in your pockets if they feel like it's a weapon. So let's say you're with that hoodie on, right? You're in that blue hoodie and they see a bulge in the front that may be a gun. They can feel on the outside. And if they feel that butt of that gun, they can go in the hoodie. But now let's say they have a bulge in the front and it feels like a phone and you're like, that's my phone. They can't just go in your pocket because that's clearly a phone and not a weapon. And again, SFPD is required to have an SFPD officer of your preferred gender conduct the pat search unless there is a life and death situation. Okay. So let's just say that, they heard, we have another example. They heard that it was there was a shooting, you match the clothing description, you match the gender and the race, and they can search you. So let's say you're a Black female, that officer can search you if it's a male officer. Now, if it's just a regular run of the mill, hey, I heard you were involved in that little robbery or that little theft out of Walgreens. If you identify, whatever you identify, you can request that kind of officer. If you identify as female, you can say, I want the preferred gender. You can say, it's not even what you prefer, it's the preferred gender for them to conduct the pat search. So it doesn't matter how you identify. You can say, I want a female officer to conduct this pat search. I want a male officer to conduct this pat search. And they have to abide by that, again, unless it's life or death. Next. An arrest. If you are detained, remember, we're going to go back to our Walgreens one. The store clerk identified you as the one that robbed the place. You are now under arrest. Now, in San Francisco, youth have a right under most circumstances to consult with the on-call juvenile attorney at the public defender's office. And this right cannot be waived. So you can't say, oh, I don't need to talk to anybody. Okay, no, you can't do that. You have the right and you cannot waive that right. And after the attorney consultation, the youth can request that a responsible adult be present during the questioning. And I always say, like, what do you guys think a responsible adult is? And a responsible adult is someone that you would consider, it could be, someone that you feel like would have your best interests at heart, your parent, your grandparent, your godparent, aunt, uncle, mentor, teacher, someone that you can get in contact with. Now, would I recommend, if your best friend is 18 at the time, calling that person? Would that person know what to do and help navigate you? Probably not. So you want to be really clear, or have an idea of who. We never want to get to this position. Okay, let's just be clear. But, please, what is a responsible adult to you? And you can request that you have that person being present during questioning. So if you say, I want to call my godfather, to be present while you're questioning me for this Walgreens robbery that you guys think I made, you have that right, and they have to wait, for that your godfather to come down, and be present during your questioning. Next. And what if I am most comfortable speaking another language? You should ask an officer for an interpreter, and you have the right to talk to the officer in your own language. This includes American Sign Language and hard of hearing individuals. And that means it doesn't matter if the officer feels like you speak perfect English. You have the right to talk to the officer in your own language. So if you speak Vietnamese, Spanish, Tagalog, Cambodian, whatever whatever you speak that you're comfortable in, even if you've been going to, San Francisco public schools or San Francisco schools your whole life, if you feel comfortable speaking that language, you have the right to an interpreter. Next. And here we go. When can I record the police when they are interacting with someone else? So youth have the right to observe stops, detentions, as we just went over, and arrests. You can overhear conversations. You can ask questions. You can record or video or audio contacts involving officers, but you must remain at a safe distance and comply if an officer asks you to move back. And I always go back to the George Floyd incident where we had that young queen videotaping. She was at a safe distance, right? But if an officer told her to step back, she has to comply. Otherwise, she will be in violation of the law. It's not only for the person's safety that's being detained or being handled by the police. It's for the officer's safety and your safety as well. Your safety. You never want to get in the middle of an officer investigation. You just want to be right there, where you can hear and see it. So if you hear an officer interviewing someone, on the street, asking them questions about where you've been, you can do that. You can record the officer, but you want to be at a good, safe distance. And I always say maybe 8 to 10 feet. If an officer tells you to step back, but you can use your own judgment to step back. He didn't tell you how far to step back, so it's up to you, but as long as you feel like you're safe. Now, you don't want to get into the officer's, personal space and you have the camera all up there, trying to be like paparazzi or anything like that, because they're over there trying to do an investigation and you never know what can happen at any moment. So you want to be at a safe distance. And again, I always tell the youth, when you're interacting with the police, it's all about tone, right? You always want to be mindful of the tone, and the officer needs to be mindful of the tone. And if you elevate the conversation, that officer will probably elevate the conversation. So, as our beloved First Lady, Michelle Obama, when they go low, you go high. That's what you have to think about. It's so easy, always so easy to, if somebody like an officer can be like really, sometimes they have a really disrespectful tone with you and maybe you think that they are trying to be above the law. You want to set that tone and let the officer know. Once you start using those key phrases like, am I free to go? Am I being detained? I'm going to record you right now. I'm at a safe distance. They're going to get that little trigger in them like, oh, okay. This young person knows what they're talking about. And I don't want to, because in San Francisco, they have to have their body worn cameras on. So when they're interacting with the public, if they do a detention or any of these other things, that they're required to turn their cameras on, that they know that they're being recorded and that you are being recorded too, for the safety of yourself and for the community, because maybe you feel like what the officer is doing is not right, but you just want to preserve it. Maybe you don't know what's going on, but you just want to have that record. But again, make sure that, and I always tell people, and I tell my own son this, tone matters, right? And I always say, like, if that person is being, rude or disrespectful to you, check them on that, but you can check them in the most respectable and polite way, because respect goes both ways. And I really try to emphasize that. It's the hardest thing to do, but I always say, just stay calm. You can take a couple of breaths, and if you're the person that's being detained, it's best to say, like, look, officer, I know you're recording me because you have to have your camera on if I'm being detained or you're interacting with me. But at the same time, can I record? Now, depending on if you're in a car, the officer may say, know what, I do need to see your hands. Then that's for your safety and officer safety. So you are not allowed to record. But in most circumstances, you can record your interaction. And if not, your friend can record. Next. And I think that's in this next slide too. As long as you are not interfering with an officer's duty, but it's always best if you're with someone, to have them record if you're the subject of the investigation. So that means if the officer is looking at you and they're saying, hey, look, remember, we're going back. I'm stopping you because I think that a crime has occurred and I think that you were involved. If you're with someone, have them record and let that be known that I want you to record. Next. And again, like I said, during an interaction, and I hate that we have to go through this, but it's so necessary, is to keep your hands visible, follow instructions, stay calm, And again, and I always want to, and I think I'm going to add this too, is tone. Tone matters, right? We're creating the situations too. So you can actually de-escalate that situation by you staying calm. And just think, when you look back on like your video or that officer's body worn camera, know that you were the one that stayed calm in the situation and you handled it like a professional and like a responsible person. Next. Youth Miranda rights. So we've all heard about Miranda, right? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. We've heard it on all these shows. It's memorized. To protect you during police questioning, police are required to give you those rights. You just don't hear it because it's something that the officer, it's optional. Every officer, if you are going to be questioned by the police about anything that they think that was criminal activity, you have these rights have to be read to you. You have the right to a lawyer. You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to say anything. You can sit in that room and say, I don't want to talk, and they have to stop talking. Or I want a lawyer, and they have to stop it. Okay. And if you can't afford a lawyer, the government has to give you a lawyer. Next. And again, that was all. I hope we never have to go through Miranda, but that was what, and then these are just some useful resources that we have. And again, I'm going to share this with, and we have it with both sides of the conversation. They have this deck for all of your information: Asian Law Caucus, Legal Services for Children, the Public Defender's Office, SF Immigrant Legal and Education Network. And again, our phone number. I am available whenever you all need me. I want everyone to know what DPA does. And again, that we are a resource, not only for people that feel like police misconduct, but just that you know that you have your rights and our youth know their rights. So again, I want to thank everyone here, both sides of the conversation. This is absolutely so phenomenal. And I'm just so glad to be here tonight. And again, this is our recap. We have consensual contact. Remember, if the officer says you can leave, you can leave. You say, am I free to go? Can I leave? You can go, but don't run. Okay. Because then that's a crime as well. We talked about a detention, pet search, rights when recording officers, and Miranda rights. And so I just want to say thank you. And again, here's how to find us. We're right there at 1 South Van Ness, MTA building, right by the B of A, and just blocks from the Civic Center BART station and those Muni routes. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that has been a wealth of information. I tell you, a lot of information. So I have a few statistics that I had looked into, and I'm kind of a little bit confused, and I might need a little clarification from you for me to understand. So I was doing some research, and it's almost every single complaint that's filed with the Police Department of Accountability and against an officer in the past months has been that officers have been rude or uncooperative, right? Bayview has the highest number of sustained improper conduct allegations, and allegations rate second only to the Tenderloin. The price of investigating nearly 4,000 complaints, some about 7.8 million. The outcome, now let's get these numbers together. 4,000 complaints, 7.8 million. 3 officers received a penalty of a 10-day suspension. Now, I did hear you talk about suspensions. So what are some of the things where officers, it's greater than 10 days or less than? Because I heard you said when it's greater than a 10-day suspension, you report it out to the police commission. So can you share some of the things? Because those 3 figures are sticking in my head. 4,000 complaints, $7.8 million, and 3 officers received a penalty of a 10-day suspension between 2017 and 2021. And that's from the Mission Local. So I'm just wondering.
Now, do you mean like less? So like they received the suspension was 10 days. So if it's 10 days or less, the Chief Scott is going to decide if that's, we make the recommendation. So what DPA does, we recommend discipline, right? And so it's up to the police commissioners or the chief of police to decide what is, or if there is any discipline in the matter. So we present our findings. We say, hey, look, at DPA, look, typically, if it's maybe the conduct was like rudeness or, failure to write a report or something like that. Those are probably some of the most common ones that we have. Maybe we'll have search. Maybe we'll have search cases where an officer has illegally detained you or searched you and violated your Fourth Amendment rights, which is our search and seizure clause of the Constitution of the United States. So those might have, be a little bit more on the suspension side. What we look for over 10 days that will go to the commission. Maybe we find that, officer involved shootings, excessive force or use of force, depending on, maybe it's an egregious, meaning it's just a really bad search, right? Maybe they busted in your house, they had no reason, or they detained you, and they didn't have any cause, they went past the whole consensual contact, they kept detaining you, they didn't have any warrants or anything, those are the type of things that you're going to see at the police commission level. Maybe it's, if we have racial bias or anything like that. So, those are the type of things that we have with that. And, those are the type of, suspension that you'll see that'll go to the police commission. Now, for the ones that are like less disciplined, usually we see a lot of like the officers didn't turn on their body worn camera. Like that's not really a stiff penalty, right? That's less than 10 days suspension. And we're going to recommend maybe like a written reprimand or something to Chief Scott, and then we present our findings. Like we do a full investigation, we write a full report, we provide the evidence and why we want that officer to be sustained for misconduct. And again, it's a recommendation, and those are the governing bodies that have to do it. So we may get a lot of complaints, right? You can complain, right? And we don't segregate like what complaint we don't investigate, but sometimes remember, we don't have enough information. We don't have enough who the officer is. Maybe it was the officer, you felt the officer was rude, but we looked at the body worn camera and we just didn't see it. So a lot of times the body worn camera will kind of, show us what happened at the time, or sometimes we just don't know what happened, right? But a lot of times, we try to go the mediation route too. We get a comment, maybe it was a case of rudeness and we want both of them. Maybe it doesn't even rise to the level, but both people need to be in the room. And if they both agree, then it's great for everyone. So those are the type, you will get a lot of complaints, but it's just not a lot to sustain because one, we could, look at the body worn camera and we interviewing all parties. Maybe we don't have enough information from the complainant because again, anyone can make a complaint. It just is a matter of what we have to go on and what we have to investigate.
Okay, so your Department of Police Accountability makes recommendations. It's not set in stone.
Yes.
You make recommendations. So you do your formal process of investigating. Pulling in witnesses, viewing body camera, all that information, and then you make recommendations and present it. So if I hear you correctly, it's up to the chief to say, oh, this is greater than 10 days and this is less than.
No, it's up to us to decide what we feel like the discipline is. So if we feel it's more than 10 days, we're going to go straight to the police commission. Okay. If we feel it's less than 10 days, we're going to go to Chief Scott, and Chief Scott is going to decide the discipline.
So you said about that body cam, which really brings my attention in. Now, oops, I forgot to cut my body cam on. How many times can that happen before it's escalated to something more? Like this is a trend with this officer because those body cams are new.
Yes.
And how many times can that actually happen? And what would the penalty be?
Yes. So standard, it depends. Maybe the officer was involved, they didn't know they were going to come onto a scene where they had to turn on their body worn camera. We're just going to look at everything individually. But if they show a history of it, we'll keep increasing the penalty, of discipline. Once you start taking away, getting the discipline, because that goes in like your file. you know how we all have like HR files at our job
Yes.
that goes in your little permanent record, you know, no one wants that regardless of what job you have, right? You never
Right.
want to be, you know, have that like punishment on your record, right? That's like being suspended or something like that, right? It's going to follow you. So no one wants that on their record. So usually, you know, it's like, okay, they'll probably get retrained. That's part of the, you know, we do, you know, they'll get like a written reprimand that'll go in their file. Sometimes it's just an admonishment, which is not really discipline, but it just lets the officer know, like, look, you did it this time. Let's not do it again. Let's go back and retrain you on how to when to use your body worn cameras. You know, these are just some type of the things that they have. But again, it's called the discipline matrix, what we have. And we go by guidelines that we have in this discipline matrix. And so it looks at your total record, if you've had any discipline history, and then it just goes to what the actual incident is. If there's any mitigating circumstances, if there's any aggravating circumstances, like this was more egregious than not, you know, like aggravating factors, like this is like the 5th time this person has not turned on, that's when you'll start seeing an increase in discipline.
And I just had a thought. Maybe they should start the when they punch in for the beginning of their shift, it should be linked to that body cam.
Yeah. Look, you know, set it and forget it, right?
Right. So I was listening also. So you mentioned, I'm thinking about the body cam. So a safe distance.
Yes.
A safe distance, because I got my cell phone. Everybody had their cell phones out
all the time.
And things go on. You know what? I'm about to sell this footage to the media, or whatever you're gonna do with the footage. So I have to actually watch my tone. I have to remain calm and make sure I'm staying in a safe distance, right? Because I don't want to get too much in the mix of things. But most officers will ask people to step back, even if it's a safe distance. They need a set distance policy that's reasonable, right? Wouldn't you agree?
I would think so, but it's hard to determine because, again, every incident you don't want to make everything like a blanket. You know, it's up to you, and not up to you, but it's up to the situation that you're in. You know, some officers might be a little bit more just because, you know, they can ask you to move back, you know, and they're being real, you know, funky about it. But it's kind of hard to say like you have to be at least 8 to 10 feet because 4 feet could be a safe distance, you know. It just depends on where you are, you know, like if you're across a car, you know, you're on the rear passenger side, they're on the driver passenger side. Because, you know, in that George Floyd incident, she was able to, you know, to get in, you know, and we got a really great view. But again, that wasn't like a huge amount of feet away. So we don't necessarily want to tie it in. We just want to make sure that everyone is safe. And when I say we just, you know, I'm speaking for like the community, for DPA, for the officers as well. It's about everyone's safety at that time.
Yes, I totally understand. And when you were going through the presentation, I almost got some anxiety because I'm thinking, wait, we're Black, we're passionate. Sometimes our voices are elevated and oh my God, you got one of my people. Let me get my camera out and video because I don't want you to kill him. And so I'm thinking within myself because I'm animated. I'm gonna be outright. I'm animated.
Yes.
And I'm passionate and I'm caring. And it's like, I gotta watch my tone. I have to, is it safe? Can I video? Can I, you know, it's like, oh my goodness, you have to do all these mental checks to make sure that nothing happens to you.
And I think that's so sad. And it's very sad that we have to do that. Like a mother, may I internally like, oh my gosh. And you're so right, Khalees. I don't like to say that, but it really is the safest way. And because as you can see, I'm animated. I'm passionate about what we do. I'll get in court. When I used to be in court all the time, like, okay, let me slow down because I'll start talking fast. And, you know, because I'm just that excited about what I'm doing. I'm just so passionate about it. But it really is, especially in those situations, because you never know where it's going to go.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. So I was looking also at some of the files on the Department of Police Accountability. And how long does it normally take for the department to complete these investigations? Because the ones that I looked through, I'm like, okay, let me look through these. And they're dated like October 2021. The final outcome was actually January 23rd of 2023. And there was a few of those. And I'm like, wait, it took all this time because me as a parent, if I presented a case to DPA And because I'm antsy, I don't feel good. I have a case.
Yeah.
I have to first come to the police, right? You have to get the courage to do that.
Yeah.
I got to come to the police to present concern. So here I am presenting a concern, a complaint. And now I have to wait that long to find out what the outcome is. I mean, January 2023 from October 2021. How long does it normally take?
It really takes maybe 6 to 9 months for your normal investigation. Sometimes you'll see that maybe it's what called, we only have, per the government code, right? And Officers' Bill of Rights, we have a year to investigate and present our findings. So we have a year. So that October 2021 should have been done October 2022. But we have this thing where in the government code, some things can stop the clock on that, right? So let's say an officer was on disability while you're investigating. That could cause tolling, meaning that we're just going to stop the clock right now. And when that officer gets back, because we can't punish anybody if they're not there. That's like technically like they can't fire you for conduct if you're not there, like on your day off, right? So, they're not supposed, like that's not really, that's the type of reasoning that it is. It's like you have to be there. Maybe there's like a civil lawsuit going on. So like the civil proceedings have to, finish before we can start our investigation. But just know, or maybe there's a criminal investigation that's running at the same time that we got the case. And that means that the clock has not started yet. So that means that we have to wait until that criminal investigation is done, and then we can proceed with our case. But in the meantime, as soon as you give us the complaint, we're interviewing you, we're getting body-worn camera footage, we're probably trying to interview the officers if we can, and we're just getting all of that information. Maybe it's involving a juvenile, so we have to get court records, and we have to file, a request to the courts in San Francisco to get those court records, because we can't have them if they're a juvenile, if they can't release like body-worn camera footage, if a juvenile is involved, we can't get the police report. So these are just type of things that may delay the investigation. That necessarily will not stop the clock, but that's when you'll see like little longer stretches where it might go over 9 months. But usually we have to wait. The clock will stop if there is a pending criminal or civil investigation going on.
So I was looking at the police scorecard, and I mean, there is such a high rate of more police officers in San Francisco are 2.4 times more likely to stop and search a Black person, right? So it's like, and use force against them. So it's kind of when there has been a proven track record where, okay, there can be great bodily harm. The police can actually use deadly force and someone loses their life. There is some reason why a grand jury, okay, first for the community, grand jury proceedings is when sometimes a grand jury may decide not to charge an individual based upon the evidence. No indictment would come from the grand jury. So it's a little bit different with grand juries, but I've seen in past that with officer-related shootings and deaths, it goes into, it bypasses the public regular indictment, the public sector. It goes straight to grand jury, and then it's kind of like a big secret, right? Because we don't hear about it. Prosecutors often prefer grand juries because the proceedings are secret, whereas preliminary hearings are open to the public. So it's kind of like, does grand jury indictments buffer criticism? What's actually going on? Why is it that a grand jury may decide not to charge an individual based upon the evidence, but no indictment would come from the grand jury? So they have a way of going around what us lay citizens do. So how can we remove the grand jury process when officers are charged with misconduct? Now, this misconduct can take a life, or it can be some great bodily harm. It just kind of, it gets past that. How can we remove that and let them face the music that we all are facing?
So with the grand jury, it's like a preview of what you would get if you were to go to trial. So it's not necessarily, they are secret proceedings, meaning like the person, let's say we have an officer involved shooting, someone died, right? what the prosecution is trying to do, and as a prosecutor, I've done secret grand jury proceedings. We want to see what our evidence is and how it presents to the grand jury, because that gives you, remember, the burden is lower at a grand jury and a preliminary hearing. Now, a preliminary hearing, the judge decides if there's enough evidence and the defendant is in the courtroom along with the prosecutor. In the grand jury proceedings, there is no judge. It's just the DA, witnesses that they call, and your grand jury that's there. So it could be, 13 people, 20 people. It just depends on how many they have for the grand jury at that time. And what you're trying to do is see, how would this look? This is all the evidence I have. So, right, they have all the evidence from the officer involved shooting. They've talked to witnesses. They're calling all the witnesses. They're not calling, and it's a secret proceeding. And so that they can see, if the grand jury doesn't indict them, meaning that they say that they don't indict them. That means that they don't have enough evidence to go to trial so that person can stand trial. Then that kind of gives you a preview that you probably won't be able to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not necessarily about hiding the information from the public. It's more so, what is your evidence and how do we have it? So in that case, the DA has to put on every piece of evidence. That means they have to put on evidence that's both beneficial and not beneficial or exculpatory, meaning it's beneficial for the defendant that they're seeking the indictment on, and non-beneficial. So they're playing actually the lawyer, the defendant's lawyer, as well as for the state as well. So they have to do everything in this grand jury as if they're in one big trial and see if that there's enough evidence. And again, it's just saying, I know there has been issues with the grand jury and how it just seems like, oh, nothing's being done in there. And maybe in other jurisdictions, we have seen that. Maybe the prosecutors didn't bring enough, and you'll see like maybe the state office or the state attorney general will come in because they want to be a more independent body and show all of the evidence, and you'll see that where they'll take over a case because they want to make sure that they're giving every single piece of evidence. Because you're right, a person or a prosecutor can only show what they want to be seen in these grand jury proceedings. So again, remember, they have to play all of these hats in this grand jury. So that's why.
Wow, pretty heavy.
Yes.
So why can't we get the police commission and DPA to remove officers' pensions and retirements, right? All their years of service.
Mhm.
But they have been found guilty when they kill someone, because it's like, okay, morally, you swear in, you're going to do all this service to the community and be right. But then you just wipe that away by being convicted for killing someone. Why we can't wipe all of what you've earned up to date? Because we paid into that. Taxpayers pay into that because it's all civil service. So why do you get the right to have your retirement, your pension, all this stuff when you have violated the code? Why we can't push something like that?
They're only limited, as far as the employment side of a police officer, the police commission. DPA, again, we make recommendations of police misconduct and for penalties that we want the officer to serve. But really, it's just, up to termination. Now with the pension and everything else, that's probably outside of the scope of what's been actually assigned to the police commission and what their powers are for San Francisco City Charter to do that. But if you are found guilty in a criminal court, then more than likely, you can, the people, the state of California will actually go and find, try to get that restitution and try to get that. But that's like something outside of the scope of what DPA does, as well as I believe what the police commission does, but don't quote me on that.
So does any of these report findings, I know that you report to the police commission, what is the role with internal affairs?
So sometimes it depends. So they have a criminal internal affairs, like you see, and then we have who's kind of like criminal and civil side. So in the police department, so they have, like, if you have a criminal internal affairs and a civil internal affairs, which is kind of what DPA does, except they can also investigate other, other stuff, like that's when the officer is not on duty, or that happens in the station where they're not interacting with the public. So always the criminal side is going to go first. And then we actually can run parallel with the civil side of the internal affairs and conduct our same investigations, but only one party can bring punishment for the officer. So you can't it's like you can't have like double jeopardy. You can't try that person twice. We can't ask for 3 days, and the civil side, we call it internal affairs division, they can't ask for another type of recommendation, and they both get maybe it's 5 days and we recommended 3 days. You can't have both of those imposed, like 8 days. That can't happen. It's either one or the other. The chief is going to, if it's less than 10 days, the chief is going to agree with us. We bring the case. The police commission, either we bring the case, or the civil side of internal affairs brings the case.
Also, we have a question. Why is it always D10 the highest area with the most complaints, and those officers have the lowest discipline actions taken?
It depends. If you can have the most complaints, but again, maybe it's, you felt like, somebody is making all of these complaints, but we looked at the body worn camera and we say, like, look, that didn't happen. Or maybe it just depends on what the complaints are. It may not make sense as far as numbers are given, but it makes sense when you see all of the different complaints that come in and how we investigate them, and just know that we are mandated by city charter to investigate them. So if you can't, it seems like you get a lot of complaints and then it's higher, we have the lowest number of sustained cases in Bayview, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, that we're not just investigating, or we don't find that there's police misconduct. Sometimes there's just not enough there. Sometimes a person can withdraw a complaint and we stop our investigation too. So if they say, we don't want you to investigate, we stop the investigation. We don't keep going like it's criminal court. I used to do domestic violence prosecutions. I can still go without my victim or survivor, to trial. But if we don't have that, you're making a complaint and you say, you don't want to make yourself anonymous, and you're letting us know who you are, and you're like, I don't want to do this, I'm withdrawing my complaint, we stop the investigation right there. A lot of it, I say we get a lot of body worn camera violations, but at the same time, officers are turning on their body worn camera their body worn cameras, as Bayview Station was the first ones to have body worn cameras in San Francisco in 2016. So they, turn their body worn cameras on when they're interacting, and sometimes we are able to, like I said before, not find misconduct. So it just depends. And again, we take it as a case by case basis. And I know the numbers seem like, the numbers do, they can, you're like, well, why is that? Especially when we know it's the highest number of Black and brown people here in San Francisco in that district. Why are the complaints so high, but the numbers so low as far as sustaining? It just may mean that, we just didn't find enough, or complaints were withdrawn.
Yes. And, and my mind goes back to, I was a kid, and when RoboCop came out, oh man, that sparked some fire. So RoboCop, it's like, wait a minute. So we go through a lot of training and all of this boot camp and what to do out in the community. So it's kind of like, wait, maybe they should spend time in the community in these various areas before even be given and, being sworn in. Maybe they should spend time and make sure this is something that they want to do and kind of intermingle, you know what I mean? Have some community time, right?
Right.
So back to RoboCop.
Okay.
I have a thought of, and this says, why can't we make all officers carry insurance to be a police officer, right? So I'm insuring myself as if I'm RoboCop, because I can do anything. I have this gun. I'm free to do whatever I want, but I'm sworn in. So it's all my mental judgment and how I feel as a person. If someone has a bulge that makes them suspicious, or I reasonably believe that they have something, I have to go by my own mental intellect. Not looking at this person that, oh, they're Black, they're brown. No, I got to look at them as a person. however my upbringing, and how I was raised, I got to kind of push all that out of my mind and say, this person has a bulge. Well, I should have insurance because I have this live weapon that's ready to go, and I can do harm. So I'm like, okay, why can't that be something that DPA and the police commission make happen, just so that police know, look, I got this $1 million policy on my job, my livelihood. If I do something stupid or something that's against what I've been sworn in to do, since we won't have the option of targeting your retirement or your, your pension, you have insurance. What's your thoughts on that?
You know what? It's kind of hard because that is one of the most dangerous jobs that we have. So it would be like asking, those in the military to carry, because they carry firearms, they carry these, they have access to weapons of, mass destruction. So I understand, why won't you make them carry insurance like doctors, like lawyers? We have to carry insurance because it's something that, that the city is going to take, that these entities, that the government is going to take responsibility for, because you put your life on the line every day when you're working, as opposed to civilian jobs, out there. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think you can get rid of that. Now, however, let's say you sue an officer. You can actually sue that officer individually if you wanted to, and it would be up to the courts to decide if they are going to if they are going to have the city represent you, or if they feel like your conduct was maybe that egregious or that wrong that they may say, you know what? You're on your own. We're not going to pay for the city attorney to represent you. This person can sue you and, go after your assets, but to make them carry insurance, it's not, I don't think it's allowed in the penal code to not have that, in our own charter, in the government code, just to force officers to carry insurance because of the risks that they are taking by being peace officers.
Understood. Sanaya, I've been enjoying myself. I'm so sorry. You are with our youth team. You're also on here. Please jump in. I know you have some questions. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't actually have a lot of questions. You were posing a lot of the ones I had already. I just have one question, and when I've been researching your organization, I heard a lot of criticism and a lot of questions about how some people think that the punishments are too lax and are too wishy-washy. Like people will put in complaints and it won't happen for a year, and then even if it's something like very egregious, like an officer was really rude and hurt someone, they'll only get a 10-day suspension. So I was wondering what you have to say to the community about that, about people who might have that outlook towards your organization.
And we're all about transparency and accountability at DPA, which is why we put all of our information on our website that you can have and you can Google. We have our openness reports. And I would just say, know that we are mandated by city charter to investigate each complaint that comes through and do a thorough investigation of what we receive, the information based on the information that we receive. And so that every complaint, it's not just about what we look at officer's history. We look at the type of complaint that was made and what the evidence is to support if we want to find that there's misconduct. And so we're looking at that, and then we have to follow and go inside of our guidelines and policies and parameters about what the discipline would be for that officer. So if you feel like, well, this officer didn't, but if this officer didn't, let's say it was an excessive force complaint, and you felt like they didn't get enough discipline or they didn't get disciplined at all, maybe we find that the officer, was in their right to use force. It just depends on the situation. Maybe it was incidental. It's. I'm not saying that's what's happening, because there are cases where we've asked for termination. That is not an officer involved shooting. There are cases where there has been excessive force and we've asked for 90 days, So it's just about what is the case before us. But I want the community to know that we are investigating it all. We are using all of our resources. We have a full staff of investigators senior investigators, legal team with lawyers with trial experience that are looking at this. We're not afraid to take these cases to the police commission, to the police chief, and that we are very, we want to eradicate the number of complaints and misconduct that is being reported to us, right? But we also want you all to feel safe that we are that resource for you in the community to make these complaints. And I just want to say, I want the community right now, and I'm talking to you all out there, to have faith and confidence in the Department of Police Accountability, that when you make that complaint, that we are investigating. And again, we're only limited to the employment side though. Okay. So there's only so much that we can do or ask for when the complaint is made and the type of complaint that is made. So just know that we're investigating. We're going to be fair to both sides involved. We are not an anti-police organization. And I always make that clear. I tell everyone that we work alongside, because everyone needs accountability though. The police are not above the law. And that's what DPA is here for. We are here to make sure that you all feel safe in the community with your interactions with the San Francisco police.
Any more questions, Sanaya?
No, that basically sums it up. Thank you. That was a very insightful answer.
Yes. Well, thank you for that question. That was a good one. So I hear you, Tinnetta Thompson with Department of Police Accountability, but I hear you saying you want us to feel safe, right? And I get a little, I get a little concerned because I have something. Are you familiar with the police scorecard?
Yes.
You are. So I want to share something with you because I get a little confused and I do want to feel safe, right? I want to feel safe. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, I'm going to make it a little bigger though.
Okay. And so I was looking at the police scorecard for San Francisco and I'm like, 31%. Let's go. Police accountability. We have percentiles that summed up. Now this is in considering 4 sections, and it's 0 to 100% comparing cities over a 250,000 population. We know San Francisco's like that. But for police accountability, we come in at 15%. Right. And that's overall averaging between the rank. And this is along the worst. So I was looking and I started digging a little deeper because it shows misconduct, complaints upheld, 24%. And getting better is to the right, the 50th percentiles in the middle, and then the worst is to the left. And then excessive force complaints upheld, 4%. Discrimination complaints upheld, 10%. Criminal misconduct complaints upheld, 4%. So that's on police accountability. But what also can feed into that is police violence. And so I was looking, force used per arrest, 34%. Oh, that's kind of high. I mean, 34%. And then deadly force per arrest, that's also high, 36%. Unarmed victims of deadly force per arrest, 27%, and racial disparities in deadly force. So it made me read a little further, and it says 21 killings by police based on population. A Black person was 9.7 times as likely, and a Latino person was 4.3% as likely to be killed by police as a white person in San Francisco from the years of 2013 to 21. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I hear Tinnetta, she says she wants us to feel safe, right? And then I'm like, oh, we gotta feel safe. But these killings by police officers, it's awful because we make these complaints. We have 3,966 civilian complaints of police misconduct. 7% were ruled in favor of civilians between 2016 and 2021. So that's about what 40-something complaints were ruled in the favor of civilians. So as I went through this and I kept going, and of course it drills down more and more. It talks about police violence, the actual shootings, 48 shootings. That means 4 every 100,000 arrests. I mean, you just don't know. It's like a lottery almost when your time is up. And then we get down to police accountability. And it shows about how these complaints go and what are sustained and what's not. And so we want to feel safe. We do. We truly want to feel safe in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
But when we look at these numbers and we look at the media and unsolved murders and murders that go to the grand jury, and then we don't even know what happened, the outcome, and then people lose their lives. We'll see $65,000 granted, 200 and something $1,000 granted. I have children, God forbid something happened to them and I'm giving $200,000. That does not replace all the memories and what your lifelong is. We want to feel safe in San Francisco. And so it's rather alarming to see those numbers and not know when your car to be pulled just because I was maybe too close with my camera or I didn't verbally say the right thing. So what kind of information or encouragement can you really give to someone in the community that is used to the violence and things happening and the officers coming out? Because we're passionate, we're scared, and the police are here. I don't want no smoke. So it's kind of like, but I want to live. So I don't know what to do. So how can you shed a better light? Because those numbers, that's a lot of shootings. That's a lot of complaints. And for almost 4,000 complaints and only 40 something to be substantiated, it's like, okay, so maybe I shouldn't make a complaint because out of 4,000, that's just like, you know what I mean? Help me out here, please.
So when you make a complaint, I'm going to keep saying this too. When you make a complaint, we are mandated to investigate it. We treat each complaint individually though, right? So you can have that number 4,000 complaints made, but when you look at it and you break it down, and that was from that time period, I believe it said like 2016 to 2021, and only 7% were in the complainant's favor. That means every complaint, we get a variety of complaint. That doesn't include officer involved shootings because we don't need a complaint to investigate that. That is a small number. And we go through a very extensive process when evaluating and investigating that. So let's take away the the officer involved shootings out of that. Let's say we have like failure to write a police report. Officer gave you a ticket for a wrong reason. Officer was rude. Officer cut you off, when you're driving down the street or something like that. All of these complaints come in. And remember, we take complaints from everyone from anywhere about anything dealing with San Francisco police. So we're sifting through these complaints. We're looking at them. So just have confidence to know that even though we may not find that there's misconduct, some of them went to mediation too. So remember, you're not going to get any discipline in favor of one way or another if we go to mediation. So you're going to take that out of the pile. So when we have those sustained complaints, meaning that we found that there's misconduct, we made our report, we're forwarding it to the commission or the police chief, depending on what we're recommending for sentences, that we've actually investigated that to the fullest extent that we're allowed to, and that we found that there was, by what we have a guideline for, or we have a threshold for, what we can, not threshold, but like our burden of proof, we have that standard, by preponderance of the evidence that we can prove that in a hearing. Then just know that we're doing that with each and every case that comes in, that we have a method, that we are interviewing officers. Officers are required to come and interview at DPA. No one wants to be called on, an officer wants to be called to DPA. So just know that every investigation you bring where the officer's name, they're coming in to interview with us, that we're getting their body worn cameras. So the numbers may seem like they're not in favor of the citizens, but I think that's a good thing, because what we're doing is we're investigating it and we're showing you that, look, we have looked at all of the evidence. We have found that maybe, it went to mediation, that there was no misconduct. Because again, anybody can say anything about a San Francisco police officer. And that's why I love the body worn cameras, because really that's all you have. And I tell my officers this when I go to hearings. Look, all you have is your credibility, so that's right there it's easy for you. It promotes transparency. And so you can see that as well. It lets, everybody knows, you can go up on the stand and say whatever you want about someone. But once you have that body worn camera, that is there. We're interviewing witnesses. We're trying to get surveillance video outside of the body worn camera. We're looking, if it happens on Muni, we're looking at Muni video, so just, I want the community to know that we are looking at every case. Even if you don't see it, that means that you have all of these complaints, but their numbers aren't reflected where the complaints actually went down, because we are making a difference in the community. We are putting different policy recommendations in place. We are investigating. We are making sure that if an officer gets dinged the first time, they're probably not going to do it again. That's a lot to get called and to be, oh my God, you have discipline, to come down to DPA as an officer and to know that someone has accused you of misconduct. Depending on, like, if you have a job where anybody can make a complaint about you while you're working, that right there is enough deterrent. So while that number, it seems so high, it doesn't show complaints went down. We've actually increased the number of complaints in that small number that we have filed with our agency from years past. So DPA, know that we are doing our job and that you can rely on us as a resource for you in the community.
Wow, that is very, very good to know that we do have a resource. And we appreciate you for coming on the show, Tinnetta. Any last and final words to the community? Yes, you are a resource. You've shared the information. We've seen the numbers. We've seen the PowerPoint for the youth, for everyone, what we need to do in case we have any type of contact with law enforcement, the police. Sanaya, do you have any more questions for Tinnetta with Department of Police Accountability?
I just have one question regarding your organization's visibility, because I feel like as a youth in San Francisco, I had no idea that you guys even existed, until just now, this show, and learning that you're going to be on the show. So I was just wondering, how are you going to get the news out that there is a resource, that there are people fighting for us out there in the face of like the police brutality movement and stuff like that?
Both sides of the conversation is where we want to start. If you're out there and you want me to come to your, agency, your community group, your school, I am here to do that, virtual or in person, depending on the time, staff. We have a whole staff. We actually have an outreach unit. And that's one of the things that DPA has changed over the years. And with our current administration and with the leadership of Director Henderson, is to make us more visible. We want you to know who we are, because a lot of people don't know what the Department of Police Accountability is. And we're one of the very few agencies in the nation, and I can say this with the utmost confidence, that actually wields this much influence and I hate to use the word, but power in our officer misconduct realm. It's not a lot of cities that have this, not a lot of cities that can go and make discipline recommendations to a police commission where they would be imposed on the officers. It's very rare in this country. And what we're trying to do is have DPAs all over the country. And that's why we are going to these different agencies. We're going to these agencies that that look like us, that look like me, that look like you, so that you can see us. And platforms like this, that's why we have our outreach unit in DPA where you can reach out to us. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we have a YouTube channel, we have our website. We want to be out there. We want to let you know that we are out there. And so that is just one of the many things that we are trying to do. And that's why I love coming to informationals like this and platforms like this, like both sides of the conversation, absolutely instrumental in our community. So I want to be that, and for you all to know who DPA is, and what we are about. So yes, in having that safety. So thank you, Sanaya. That is an excellent question. And what I always say, like, we want to brand ourselves. We are looking out, to go out there and be out there as a voice for you all as well.
All right. Well, thank you for being here with both sides of the conversation, because it's very important that these resources are available to us and we know that what's out there. So I want to share with the community tonight. So yes, the bishop is not here and we don't have a benediction, but we do have a closing. Sanaya, is there anything that you want to share with the community?
No, not necessarily.
All right. Well, thank you for being here as well. So, community, please make sure whenever you are pulled over or have contact with the officer, you want to be mindful and understand you need to verbalize first. You want to make sure how's your tone. You want to make sure that you're not running, because you just can't run. That's a crime. You can't just take off. You want to be careful how you move. You want to watch your tone, and you want to ask a variety of questions. Am I free to go? Am I being detained? Is this a safe distance? If the officer reasonably believes that you may have a weapon, don't make any sudden movements. You want to make sure that you go back home. So make sure that if you are actually filming someone else that is being detained by an officer, you may want to verbalize, I'm on a safe distance. You want to make sure you're at 8 to 10 feet. You want to just be cautious and watch what's going on. You want to also know your Miranda rights if you do get arrested or they try to detain you. You want to make sure that you have the right to remain silent. That means don't say anything. You can ask for legal representation. And do know, it has been said on our platform at both sides of the conversation that the officers are not above the law. But do be mindful when you're in contact with the officer that you must remain mindful to make it home. Thank you for joining us for this Educational Thursday. Department Police Accountability DPA 101. Tinnetta Thompson, thank you very much. We appreciate everything that you've brought to us tonight, and have a good night.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
All right.